Now we're going to take a look at the playable we brought to GDC 2018 to show how some of the systems and mechanics work in Longshot. So I'm going to start by taking a look at the actual items that provide active abilities to players. We have them sort of arrayed right now in this test area with a set of sort of soft roles that we feel really map to different play styles that players can have. And I'll start by taking a look at some of these items. So the first thing is the Blink Cloak. So what the Blink Cloak allows you to do is just blink. Cloaks provide an active ability that players can use that's on a cooldown whenever they want. Another one of the cloaks is this Shadowy Cloak. The Shadowy Cloak allows you to go stealth, so you can actually sneak up on players or use it to get away. Then we have some cloaks that are actually really built for to be part of a support role or work really well in a cooperative environment. And so this casts down a shield, and the shield can be used both to block projectiles, both for coming in and going out, and it adds a really interesting sort of tactical point to the play as it's going through. So all of these cloaks, the wide variety of them, are things that players can use to help them engage or disengage or to support as they move through the map themselves. And then we'll go into the actual gauntlets. So the gauntlets are what provide players with their magical abilities. Each gauntlet has both a spell and a sorcery. So I'm going to take a look at the Toxic Gauntlet first. The Toxic Gauntlet, when you cast out, has this acid spray. And now if I hit a player with that, it'll do a lot of damage, but it also leaves this spray on the ground, which is very dangerous if I run over it. The sorcery for poison is this Poison Cloud. So I can cast this Poison Cloud. And both of these are fairly deadly on their own, but if I actually start to interact, to have my other elements interact with them, I can do really interesting things. So I can cast my Fireball and it will ignite the Poison Cloud into this Dragon Fire that does a lot more damage. I can do the same thing with the poison that's on the ground, and that will end up really damaging players, but also you see that it got rid of the poison really quickly. And so that's a way I can use it both offensively and defensively if I want to. So I'll cast down the Firewall first, which is the Firewall. Firewall is the sorcery for the Fire Gauntlet, and I can actually spray the poison through, and you can see that it'll actually ignite on the other side. So there's a variety of different ways to make these different elements interact, and some of them end up being like really interesting and provide a lot of depth. So I'll put a Firewall back down here. Get some mana back. And what I can do is I can try to shoot or cast my ice spell through the Firewall. And you can see that what ends up happening is since the Firewall was down first, the ice actually just goes up to the fire, and the ice projectile didn't even go through that wall of fire. Now if I cast the ice first, you can see that the ice, it leaves this trail of ice as we go through. And if I try to put a Firewall down now, the fire will go out. And so the order in which I actually grab the various the actual cast the various spells matters. And so now that this puddle is down, I can actually electrify it. That will then stun players. And so all of these end up having very interesting interactions between them. So I can take, I can go back to the Poison Gauntlet. I can cast that Poison Cloud and say I don't want that Poison Cloud there. I can actually get rid of it with the Wind's Whirlwind. And so Whirlwind will end up doing things like putting out fire and changing the way projectiles go. So all of those things start to interact in really interesting ways, especially when you're in a multiplayer scenario. So sometimes you can use, even your enemy's own magic against them. So now we're going to take a look at some of the gems. You can see an array of gems over there, and each one of these items has gems attached. So if you look at the Blink Cloak, for example, we have two different types of gems here. One, this cracked gem of readiness, which you can see that there's different rarities on these. We'll just do a straight stat change. So that actually decreases the cloak cooldown by 10%. But then we have the Cloudy Tailor's gem. That will actually increase the number of charges that the Blink Cloak can hold up to 3. And so this really changes the behavior that you see in the gauntlet, in the actual cloak. And that becomes really interesting as far as the way you want to specialize your cloaks and gauntlets to work in different ways. So this is something you can do if you want to maybe play more aggressively, play more of a support role, depending on how you want to do it. So you can see that my Blink Cloak actually lets me blink 3 times and save up those charges. And that becomes really valuable in terms of how you want to specialize and how you want to change up your own playstyle. You can see that there's a variety of gems here, as well as the different levels of rarity. So each one of those ends up providing different levels of stats as you move through, and you can actually craft lower levels of rarity together to make a higher level of rarity. So now we're going to take a look at going into the map itself, and I'll show you some of the things that can happen on the map. Let's see if I can grab the Frost Gauntlet first and we'll run in there. So this is the test map that we've put together mainly for this playable, but it'll show you how big and how we want to set up the map for, how we've been setting up the map for actual sessions. And so the map itself, this area you may recognize from the art walkthrough. We call it Fort Halcyon, so it's this big sort of decrepit castle that really gives a lot of interesting vertical play and sort of pathways in and out. We do a lot with sort of the movement and stealth to really try to make those cloaks be something that players find interesting, because we really find them to be quite fun to use. But you can see that the map itself is pretty big and fairly dense, and so we have kind of a wide-reaching open areas that you can go to that have interesting combat setups, and we really focus on trying to make each one of these little vignettes be very fun for the different play styles and the different cloak and gauntlet combinations, the different spells, and how all of that can interact together. And you can see that we actually build the environment itself to take advantage of the elemental interaction. So like these puddles down here, I can actually freeze, or I can electrify, they'll actually put out fire, and so there are elements in the environment itself that we try to use to really amp up the different types of interaction and tactical and strategic play that players can have as they're moving through the map itself.